My name is Kelly, I'm 29 years old, and after years of relentless hard work, I was finally promoted to project manager at a prestigious tech company in Seattle. This was a major milestone in my career, not just for the new title, but also for the significant salary increase that came with it. Once the excitement of the promotion settled, I decided to fulfill a long-held dream: buying a new car for myself. Getting good at an actual dream, why's it boring you? It's a year from now, but not just any car. It had to be something special, a reward that truly reflected all the effort I had put in. I spent weeks researching different models, comparing features, and carefully calculating costs to ensure I could afford the monthly payments without compromising my financial goals. After many late nights deliberating, I decided on the latest BMW 5 Series, a car I had quietly admired since my college days. Last Saturday, I walked into a BMW dealership, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. I didn't think it would pee up as I walked into the parking lot, only to see a car parked by my car. That feeling quickly faded when I saw the gleaming new cars displayed throughout the showroom. Andrew, the salesperson at the dealership, was incredibly helpful and showed no hint of condescension, something I had worried about as a woman buying a car. When Andrew led me to the BMW I had been eyeing, I couldn't contain my excitement. Sitting in the driver's seat for the first time, I felt the softness of the leather upholstery, admired the meticulous attention to detail in the interior, and heard the smooth purr of the engine when I pressed the start button. It seemed more dynamic, and I felt as though I had found somewhere real. Everything was perfect, from the way the car glided effortlessly on the test drive, to the firm grip of the steering wheel in my hands. I knew instantly that this was the car for me. After 2 hours of completing paperwork, I officially drove my dream BMW 5 Series out of the dealership. With the wind blowing through the open windows and an indescribable sense of pride filling my heart, I could hardly believe the car was really mine. For the first few days, I savored every moment with it. Every time I pulled into the parking lot at work and saw my shiny new BMW parked neatly, I couldn't help but smile. My coworkers were impressed too, and honestly, I felt proud that I had achieved this, earning every dollar myself to afford the car I had always dreamed of. Buying the car wasn't just a reward for my hard work, it was a reminder of the journey I've been on. From starting my career as an intern earning just enough to get by, to today, a project manager with a sleek BMW. I had built this life through perseverance, dedication, and determination. This accomplishment wasn't just a milestone in my career, but a motivation to keep striving for even bigger goals in the future. As I continued to walk, I felt secure, and saw that this path I had built was something I had been building a long time. That Saturday evening, I drove my new BMW to my parents' house for dinner, a family tradition we've kept up every weekend. As soon as I parked in the driveway, the porch light flicked on, and my younger sister, Lisa, 22, ran outside. Still a senior in college in California, Lisa had always been the most pampered member of the family. When she saw my car, her eyes widened in amazement, and she practically shouted, "Oh my God, Kelly, did you really buy this? It's gorgeous!" She ran circles around the car, examining every detail like a child discovering their favorite toy. Mom and Dad came out shortly after. Mom looked at the car, her expression a mix of surprise, but with no hint of excitement. Dad, as usual, furrowed his brow in the way he always did before saying something disapproving. I had anticipated their reaction, but the lack of even a single compliment still stung. Inside, dinner was anything but comfortable. Lisa couldn't stop talking about my BMW, her enthusiasm uncontainable. "Kelly, you have to let me drive it. Just one round, please. My friends would freak out if they saw me behind the wheel of this," she pleaded excitedly. I smiled lightly, trying to stay calm. "Sorry, Lisa. I just bought the car and I'm not comfortable letting anyone else drive it yet." My response immediately soured her mood. "You're so selfish," she snapped, her face turning from excitement to anger. "I'm your sister. Don't you trust me?" Mom quickly jumped in, her tone laced with reproach. "Kelly, Lisa just wants to drive it for a little bit. Why are you making such a big deal? We're family. Can't you share with your sister?" Her words carried the same accusatory tone I'd heard so many times before. Dad added his voice, the familiar disappointment seeping through. "Kelly, you should think about Lisa a little. Don't you think you're being selfish? No, I. Their words left me frozen. Old memories rushed back, like a slow reel playing in my head. I remembered my teenage years, when Lisa was always prioritized, and I was constantly told to grow up and sacrifice for my sister. I thought of the time I was 16, using a cracked, outdated phone while Lisa, at just 9 years old, was gifted the latest iPhone because all her friends had one. When I asked for a better phone, my parents simply said, "You're old enough. If you want one, get a job and buy it yourself." And I did. I worked part-time, saved every penny, and bought my own decent phone, while Lisa continued to get whatever she wanted without question. Bitterness from those memories surged inside me, but I forced myself to stay composed. "Mom, Dad, I worked really hard to earn this car," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I'm not comfortable letting anyone else drive it right now, and that's my decision." Lisa jumped up from her chair, her face flushed with anger. "You're the worst, you always think you're the only one that matters," she yelled before storming off, her heavy footsteps echoing through the house, followed by the loud slam of her bedroom door. I turned to Mom and Dad, hoping for a glimmer of understanding, but Mom only shook her head. "Kelly, I can't believe you're acting like this. We raised you better than that," she said, her words cutting like a knife. I stared down at my plate, suddenly losing any appetite I had left. Without another word, I stood up, cleared my plate, grabbed my car keys and walked out. No one stopped me. As I drove home, tears welled up in my eyes. I wasn't crying because I was angry at Lisa or my parents. I was crying because of the injustice that had shadowed me my entire life. This car, a symbol of everything I had worked so hard for, should have been a source of pride. But to my family, it had become just another reason to judge and criticize me. Sunday night, as I was unwinding after a long, exhausting week, my phone suddenly rang. My mom's voice on the other end was tense. "Kelly, your sister was in an accident," she said, leaving me frozen in place. My heart started racing as the worst thoughts rushed through my mind. "Is Lisa okay?" I asked, overwhelmed with worry. "She's fine, but..." Mom hesitated, her voice trailing off. "Your car is totaled." It felt like a lightning bolt struck me. "My car? Why my car? I didn't let Lisa borrow it," I shouted, a mix of anger and panic rising inside me. "Kelly, don't overreact," Mom snapped, though her voice betrayed her own tension. "Lisa just borrowed it to go out with her friends. What's done is done, what matters now is helping your sister." I couldn't say another word, my hands trembling as I hung up. The excitement of my new car quickly dissolved into anger and bitter disappointment. The next morning I went to the police station, where I learned the full story from an officer named Martinez. He explained that my BMW had been found at the side of the road, severely damaged after crashing into a streetlight. Lisa and her 3 friends had been drunk, and one of them, Katie, was seriously injured, suffering a broken collarbone and a concussion. But the worst part wasn't even that. Martinez told me Lisa had impersonated me during the arrest, claiming she was Kelly Thompson, and that the car was hers. Hearing that, I felt my blood boil. How could Lisa do this? She hadn't just stolen my car, she had dragged me into her mess. Martinez went on to explain that Lisa resisted arrest, escalating the situation further. She was now in custody, and the police needed me to clarify the ownership of the car. When I met Lisa in the holding cell, she showed no remorse. Instead, she looked at me with irritation. "Oh, you're here. Finally stepping up to take responsibility, huh?" she said sarcastically. "Responsibility?" I nearly shouted. "You stole my car, drove drunk, caused an accident, and impersonated me. And you think I'm going to take responsibility for your actions?" Lisa shrugged as if none of it was a big deal. "It's your car, so it's your problem. My friends are hurt and they're asking for money. Mom said you'd help." That statement felt like gasoline on an open flame. I turned to my parents, who were standing nearby, their faces filled with worry. "Did you really tell Lisa I'd pay for this?" I asked, my voice laced with fury. Mom avoided my gaze, but Dad finally spoke up. "Kelly, you have to understand. Lisa is young, she didn't know what she was doing. You're her older sister, can't you help her just this once? This time I couldn't hold back. Help? It's always the same. Every mistake Lisa makes is covered up, and I'm the one who has to bear the consequences. I worked hard to buy that car, and now it's destroyed because of Lisa's irresponsibility. I turned to Lisa, who had started crying, but her tears no longer softened me like they used to. I'm not paying for this, and I'm not helping you out of this mess, I said, firmly. After leaving the station, I returned to my apartment only to find it trashed. Lisa had taken the spare key from my mom, let herself in and thrown a party while I was gone. Beer bottles, cigarette butts and stains were scattered everywhere, making me feel like my personal space had been completely violated. I immediately called my landlord and had the locks changed that night. The betrayal I felt wasn't just from Lisa but also from my parents, who had enabled her behavior for so many years. From that day forward, I decided things would change. I was no longer willing to shoulder Lisa's mistakes or tolerate my parents' favoritism. Even if it meant being labeled selfish by my family, I knew I had to stand up for myself, my property, and my future. I began collecting evidence to file a lawsuit against Lisa for theft and impersonation. A necessary step to put an end to the years of injustice I had endured. After deciding to press charges against Lisa for stealing my car and breaking into my apartment, I knew my relationship with my family would never be the same. But I had no other choice. My heart was heavy with pain, but resolute with determination. This wasn't just about property or money. It was about setting a final boundary to protect myself. The day after filing the lawsuit, my parents flooded my phone with calls and messages, trying to convince me to withdraw the case. The same tired arguments echoed once again. Kelly, you can't do this to your family. Lisa's just a kid, she didn't mean it. And do you really want to tear the family apart over a car? I had heard it all before. Every call and every message only solidified my realization that they would never change. I was always expected to shoulder Lisa's mistakes, no matter the cost to me. I moved to a new apartment in a different part of the city, one with secure entry and strict building security. I didn't share my new address with anyone in the family. My former landlord, Angela, even called to check on me when I left, but I simply told her I needed a fresh start. In my new space, I felt safer, though the anxiety lingered, like a shadow in the back of my mind. During this time, I hired an attorney to represent me. They helped me compile a thorough case, from security footage showing Lisa entering my apartment without permission, to witness statements about the car accident and her impersonation of me, to the police. Everything was meticulously prepared, and for the first time, I felt like I was reclaiming control over my life. Meanwhile, my family descended into chaos. My parents borrowed money from relatives to cover Lisa's bail and dealt with a lawsuit from Katie's family over the injuries she sustained in the accident. As things spiraled, they turned to social media to criticize me openly. My mom posted things like, "It breaks my heart to see a family torn apart by a selfish child," and hinted that I was the reason Lisa was in trouble. Her posts quickly gained traction, drawing comments from relatives and family friends. I received countless messages accusing me of abandoning my sister and breaking the family apart. I didn't respond to any of the accusations. Instead, I focused on my work and my well-being. At my job, I was fortunate to have the support of my colleagues and boss. They encouraged me to talk about my struggles, which helped me realize I wasn't as alone as I'd felt. I saw that relationships built on respect and sincerity could exist outside my family. Eventually, the court date arrived. Lisa and my parents showed up, but they didn't so much as glance in my direction. Lisa tried to argue that her actions were just a momentary lapse in judgment, but the evidence was undeniable. The court found her guilty of breaking and entering, theft, and impersonation, holding her financially responsible for the damages she caused. While it couldn't undo what had been done, I felt a weight lift, knowing that justice had been served. After the trial, the calls and messages from my family stopped entirely. My parents seemed to have made the decision to cut ties, and Lisa disappeared from my life. Part of me ached at the loss of my family, but another part felt like a massive burden had finally been lifted. I understood that sometimes, to find peace, you have to accept certain losses. My new life slowly began to stabilize. I focused on taking care of myself, learning to let go of past wounds, and looking ahead to the future. Even though I had lost my car, I realized that the freedom and self-respect I had gained were far more valuable. In my new apartment, I finally found something I had always longed for but never experienced within my family: peace. After the trial ended, the consequences of Lisa's reckless actions became more apparent than ever. Lisa's university sent an official notice. She had been expelled for severe violations of the Student Conduct Code. Driving under the influence, causing an accident, and resisting arrest had gone far beyond what the school could tolerate. This news not only left Lisa in shock, but also sent my parents into a state of despair. My mom called me, sobbing uncontrollably, her voice trembling with anguish. "Kelly, Lisa has lost everything, don't you feel sorry for your sister?" But I responded calmly, "Mom, these are the consequences of Lisa's actions. I warned you many times but no one listened." I hung up after that, unwilling to continue the conversation. Meanwhile, Katie's family officially filed a lawsuit seeking medical expenses and damages for emotional distress. The amount demanded was over $80,000, a figure far beyond my parents' financial means. They were forced to scramble, borrowing from relatives and even putting their house up as collateral to settle the lawsuit. I heard from a relative that my parents were deeply embarrassed to ask for help from people they once looked down on. Despite this, they still didn't reach out to me, except for their accusatory posts on social media. Lisa, who had always been spoiled, was now forced to face a harsh reality. With no protection from her school or my parents, she started working part-time at a coffee shop to pay off her debts. Friends who were once close to her began distancing themselves, not wanting to be associated with someone who had a criminal record and a tarnished reputation. I heard through old friends that Lisa tried to reach out to me, but I didn't respond. I had set firm boundaries and had no intention of breaking them. Although I no longer had direct contact with my family, news about them still reached me through relatives and mutual acquaintances. Extended family members began distancing themselves from my parents, who had lost their credibility due to their blind defense of Lisa. My parents, who once took pride in their perfect family, were now isolated within their own community. They no longer hosted the grand family gatherings they used to, and the image of a happy family they had always flaunted had completely crumbled. The hardest part for me was learning to let go of the resentment. There were nights when I would wake up feeling angry, replaying my mom's words in my head. "Family comes first, Kelly, you can't turn your back on your sister." But I reminded myself that protecting myself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. I had spent my whole life sacrificing for my family, only to realize they never truly appreciated me. Instead of dwelling on the past, I focused on rebuilding my life. I joined a yoga class to reduce stress and connect with new people. My career also flourished, and I began taking on bigger projects. A year after the incident, I had saved enough money to buy a new car, and not long after that, I purchased a modern apartment. Not to show off, but to prove to myself that I could stand strong and move forward. Over time I realized I had finally escaped the shadow of my family. Their troubles no longer affected me. My parents and Lisa could continue blaming me, but it no longer weighed on my mind. I had chosen my own path, one free of manipulation, pain, and injustice. And that was the freedom I had been searching for all along. After moving into my new apartment, with its modern security system, it felt like I had officially closed an old chapter of my life and begun a fresh start. For the first time in years, I truly experienced peace. No more late-night phone calls, no more guilt-ridden messages from my family, and no more passive-aggressive posts on social media. My new space wasn't just a place to live, it was a sanctuary, where I could rebuild myself. A place I could finally call home, in every sense of the word. I started my days in the bright, sunlit apartment, with rays streaming through the large windows, illuminating the cozy yet minimalist living room. Every corner of the apartment bore my personal touch, from the little cactus pots on my desk to the landscape painting I hung on the wall. Creating this space was more than just decorating, it was a form of healing. Each item I chose reminded me that I was living for myself now, not for anyone else's expectations or demands. As I built my new life, I also learned to take better care of myself. Instead of letting work consume all my time, I started spending weekend mornings strolling through a nearby park, breathing in the fresh air and relishing the calm. I signed up for a cooking class on Wednesday evenings, where I met new friends who were also on their own journeys of self-discovery and rebuilding. The beauty of these friendships was that none of them knew about my past. To them, I was just Kelly, a 29-year-old woman who loved life and was eager to try new things. Still, old memories sometimes resurfaced, especially during the holidays. I vividly remembered the warm and lively Christmas dinners with my family before everything fell apart. But instead of letting those memories sadden me, I decided to create new traditions for myself. That Christmas, I cooked a small dinner and invited a few close friends over. We laughed, shared stories, and enjoyed each other's company. And I realized that family doesn't have to be defined by blood. Sometimes family is made up of the people who genuinely value you and want to see you happy. My career also continued to thrive. After the challenges and losses caused by Lisa's actions, I poured all my energy into my projects. My professionalism and dedication didn't go unnoticed, and I was promoted to a senior management position, a milestone I never thought I'd achieve so quickly. The pay raise not only improved my quality of life, but also allowed me to start saving for bigger dreams, like buying my own house or traveling the world. Occasionally, I would hear updates about my family through relatives or friends. My parents were reportedly still struggling with debt, and Lisa had moved back in with them, taking on odd jobs to make ends meet. These updates no longer made me feel sad or angry. I had learned to let go, because I knew I was no longer responsible for their mistakes. Rebuilding my life wasn't always easy. There were days when I felt lonely, and moments when I questioned whether I had made the right choices. But whenever I looked around at my quiet, orderly apartment, I smiled. This was a space I had created, free of control, judgment, or conflict. It was where I felt free to be myself. Looking back now, I see that the pain and hurt from my family taught me an important lesson. Sometimes, to find happiness, you have to be brave enough to let go of what hurts you, even if it's your own family. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm confident I'm on the right path. A path I've chosen for myself, guided by hope and self-respect. Looking back on my journey, Kelly, realize that while I've lost many things, the most valuable gain has been the freedom and control over my own life. The BMW, a symbol of my hard work and success, is gone. My family, who should have been a source of comfort and encouragement, became a burden I had to walk away from. Yet, from the ruins of those losses, I discovered something I didn't even know I was searching for all these years. A life free from impositions, expectations, and guilt. I've learned that loss isn't always a failure. It can be a way to free yourself from what holds you back. The breakdown of my relationship with my family no longer causes daily pain. It has become a milestone marking my growth. I stopped trying to prove my worth to people unwilling to see it. Instead, I focused on building a life I'm proud of. A life I control. With each passing day, I feel stronger. The painful memories of favoritism and injustice in my family no longer weigh me down. Instead, they've become lessons that taught me the importance of independence and self-respect. I've come to understand that happiness doesn't come from meeting others' expectations, but from living true to your values and dreams. My new life isn't always easy, but it brings a peace I've never known before. Waking up in my quiet apartment each morning, with sunlight streaming through the windows, reminds me that I'm living for myself now. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a confirmation that I'm on the right path. The final takeaway from my story is this: sometimes, to find true freedom and happiness, you must have the courage to let go of what causes you pain, even if that means family. Only by freeing yourself from those burdens can you open the door to a new life. A life you truly deserve. Share your thoughts about this story. What would you do if you were in Kelly's situation? Don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful and heartfelt stories about life, family, and the journey to finding happiness.